Welcome. Here's my story. So I've been for 30 years working in the political field and the education field, and 30 years in leadership, 30 years getting things done, 30 years delivering priorities that have changed at the last minute, working with a range of stakeholders and customers and political and business masters who have all kinds of demands. And so in terms of juggling, in terms of getting the most out of the people around me, spent some time doing that. So looking forward to looking at that subject with you today. So a hearty welcome to all of you. Know that the chat is enabled. The Zoom reactions are enabled. Your microphones are not turned on, but they are also enabled. So don't be shy in terms of your participation, questions, comments, concerns, challenges, anything you'd like me to address today in our webinar. Better get rolling, right? Okay. First question, and it's a question for you, and I'm looking for your contributions, my friends, in the chat box. What gets in the way today, apart from attending webinars, of course, of delivering your priorities? Let's brainstorm this. I'll give you 60 seconds. Okay, anything you like in the chat. I think I'll play as well. Let's see. Things that get in my way, and also things that get in your team's way, things that get in your people's way. Let's see. Technology gets in my way, especially when I can't get to the next slide of the PowerPoint presentation. Weather gets in my way. Thank you. Exactly right. Thank you very much. Yes. Meetings that should have been an email, right? Yes. Too much. A sense of overwhelm there. And I hear that one. I feel that one. Where do I start? Right? Goodness me. Distractions, shiny objects, interruptions, of course, maybe, right? Phone calls, all the things that happen, all the things that this smart device is supposed to help you out with. Turns out it's a massive distraction and diluter of our prioritization. Tanya, thank you. William, thank you. Daniel, thank you. Doesn't that feel better to get that out? It's like letting some air out of our frustration balloon there. So this is all true. All those things. I'm not going to disagree with any of them because I've felt the same way. I probably felt the same way at some point this morning as well, recognizing where do I start? Why doesn't everyone have the same working style as I do? What's the best way to get in touch? What's the best way to nudge someone? Why are so many people asking me to do so many things at the same time? And so on.
Someone will be there in a minute.
Oh, Veronica, tell me again.
They're on their way. Yes, sorry about that.
Okay.
Mr. Victor is out today and tomorrow, and Ms. Shara will be there today and tomorrow.
Okay, Veronica, thank you. Nice one.
She left about 5 minutes ago.
Okay, nice one. Thanks for the comms. I appreciate that. Okay. Excellent things in the chat there. Excellent suggestions in terms of. There we go. Thank you. Now, what are we here for today? We're here about the should. Ditch the should. Let's see what that's about. Okay. Because I should be better with these meetings. I should be better with distractions. I should find a way to deflect the constant requests from other people. I should be more assertive about going to all these meetings and not insisting that should be an email or a chat or a phone call or something, right? Yeah, no problem at all, Veronica. You're okay. I'm going to recommend 2 books for your post-webinar reading today. The first one, or the second one on the slide, I suppose, Expectation Effect by David Robson. I'm interested in that book today because David Robson describes our brain as a prediction machine in terms of thinking, well, I know that meeting was a waste of time and therefore the next meeting is going to be a waste of time, right? Or I know I wasn't very good at saying no to someone yesterday, and therefore I'm going to find it difficult to do that today. So he's very big on us challenging the expectations and the predictions that we tell ourselves in our own brains about what we can and can't do. Also recommending, I feel like everyone in the world is going to copy this by now, right? Atomic Habits by James Clear. He is insistent that we can get more done if we, and it's going to sound pretty simple when I say it, I think, if we make our good habits easy and our bad habits more difficult as well. So we'll see if we have some time to think about habits and rituals today as part of our webinar. Cool. Okay. here's where we should ditch the should. Right now, I'm also certified in English language teaching to adults. So very big on the lexis, very big on the vocabulary. And I know the words we use with other people are significant. The words we tell ourselves are just as significant as well. So again, if I'm putting a bunch of shoulds on all those contributions you made in the chat, what am I saying to myself with should? What are you saying when you say should? I should be more productive. I should prioritize the work that I do. Yeah, you should. Absolutely right. But should doesn't get us anywhere. Should is, well, what you can tell me in the chat what the should is. I don't think it's laziness. I don't think it's trying to deflect. I think it sounds positive when we say it, right? But it doesn't get us anywhere. I know that's true for me. So should does not work for me. It has not worked for me. And also, again, David Robson, James Clear, European researchers, they're going to tell you the language matters. And this word gives us a way to kind of get past the urgency of planning constructively and deliberately to get more stuff done like that. Not necessarily to work longer hours, but to actually do the most important things like that. Okay. We make commitments with the language that we use, and those commitments, part of that is called mental contrasting. I'll give you 30 seconds on mental contrasting. Let's say, for example, we do want to, prioritize better. Let's say we want to get more out of our meetings, for example. I want to make sure I've got a good agenda in there. Well, part of mental contrasting is thinking, what do you want? And I'm saying, well, I want to have better meetings. I know I have to show up. I know I have to be present. I have to communicate with people. I have to be visible, but I want to get more out of that. Well, part of mental contrasting is thinking, how's that going to feel? How proud am I going to be to look back and recognize I'm getting more out of those meetings? That's the first part of mental contrasting. What do you want? How's it going to feel? If that's all we do, it's kind of like a should, right? It's going to feel better. I should do that. So the other part of this, of course, is to think, well, why am I not at this point getting more out of meetings? What's in my way? Is it something around me, something in my systems, something in my communication, something in my mindset? And so what will I do the next time? Planning deliberately for success. What can I do? What can I tell myself? What can I tell other people about availability, about responsibility, all the abilities, about transparency as well? How can I make sure I'm looking at that meeting in the best way? How can I make sure I'm preparing in the best way as well? That's enough about meetings for now, but just want to recognize the negative power of should in our vocabulary. So I want to swap that out. And I've got a bunch of tools and techniques to share with you today, by the way. The shoulds. The should is about perfectionism. The should is us constantly telling ourselves that we're not good enough, because of course, if everything's going just fine, there's no shoulds, right? Because we're just getting it done like that. Anytime we say should, we're saying we're not meeting expectations. We're below par like that. And keep telling yourself you're not good enough, you're going to believe it, right? Now, this isn't about just a blanket of positive thinking, but it is recognizing that our brain is powerful. We are powerful. Think of all the things you've done to get to the point that you are right now. You overcome challenges every day. You fix problems every day. We're very good at this. So we should stop telling ourselves that. We should stop limiting ourselves to shoulds and get more into that constructive problem solving and prioritizing as well. Oh, at the bottom of the slide there, shoulds for other people. Yeah. So this is about us, but it's about the people in your team, your stakeholders, potential customers, clients, your boss, your assistant. If I've got someone who's 5 minutes late for a meeting, and I say he should be more punctual, like that, maybe so. Does it make him more punctual? It doesn't. But I've just put a destructive label on that person and decided, you know what? That person doesn't show up on time. That person is unable to show up on time. And I'm going to manage that person or work for that person with that mindset of thinking they're unreliable. They're a waste of my time, like that. And that does not go in the right direction. Not at all. I'm leaning away from that relationship. I'm making my mind up about that relationship. So shoulds for us, shoulds for others. You can see I'm not big on the should. However, I'm not about just thinking positive either. We can't control magically the thoughts that arrive in our mind. And sometimes you're going to feel like you're having a bad day. Sometimes you're going to feel like maybe you're being taken advantage of, that you've been given too much work to do, that no one listens to you, whatever it is. We can have those thoughts and we can sit with those thoughts and can't stop them coming in all the time because stuff happens. We don't live in the perfect world. You've noticed that. I don't live in a fantasy world, neither do you. But we can't control what we do with those thoughts. We can control and be responsible and be adult for how we respond to them as well. So instead of the shoulds, this is about getting better at getting better. All right. If we, well, let me ask you a question for those Zoom reactions. We use the chat now for the Zoom reactions. You know, you got green checks and thumbs ups and red X's and all kinds of things with Zoom. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a green check if you strive for perfection. Let me know. Strive for perfection. Thank you. Colette will play. Aisha will play. Thank you. I know I've got some people in the room who strive for perfection. It sounds amazing, doesn't it? It sounds so powerful. It sounds so energetic. But you also know, William, thank you, Kathy, thank you. Oh, Craig, thank you. I think you've given me maybe a solution there. I know actually saying this is hard to strive for perfection. We know what the problem is, right? We're never going to get there. And why would I give myself that goal? Why would I set my team an impossible task? Well, I'm loving that in the chat right now. Look at this. We've Susan, I'm glad you achieved a momentary perfection. I don't think I ever have, but that sounds like a pretty sweet, blissful moment, right? Striving to, I see the love in the chat there. Striving to be better than yesterday. Striving for progress, for growth. Okay, I'm preaching to the converted on that one. Awesome. So now I know, because you just told me in the chat, thank you very much, that we can keep an open mind for the rest of this webinar. We can think, okay, there's going to be some things, Hamish, he's going to show us some tools and some techniques, and if it's something new, I'm going to take a good look at this and tell you what, if it's something that's going to fit today, if you can take this and make the difference to better prioritizing, better productivity for you and the people around you, well, fantastic, win-win. If your immediate thought about some of these tools is, oh, I don't think that's going to work for me, or when I tried that before, I don't think it's not a good fit for the work that I do, then I'll tell you what, if that's how you're feeling about that tool technique, fine, put it away. But don't forget about it. Maybe put it in your back pocket, put it in that desk drawer, and remember weeks or months from now that there's something you can rely on, something you can depend on. Because I'm not going to give you any tools that don't work, but I recognize that sometimes these things land today, sometimes they take a little while to land as well. So I thank you in advance for, as we're getting into the tools and techniques now, as promised, I thank you in advance for keeping the open mind. And also, I hope you feel the energy in this room, but also feel the commonality in this room right now, where if you came into this webinar feeling like you're not getting enough done, or all the things, feeling the pressure of overwhelming tasks, too many meetings, there's a billion people in the world saying, I know, me too. So we can get better at this together. Yeah, and I'm on board that train as well, I promise you. Okay, let's take a look at some techniques. As we go through these, I'm going to be asking you if you've got questions. I'm going to be asking you if you've met this before. I'm going to be looking for examples as well. So don't be shy with Zoom reactions. Don't be shy with the chat as well. And if you want to step on the mic, you can use the raised hand. I'll be, I got my Zoom ears on and everything. I'll be happy to hear you as well. Okay, what have we got first? One of my favorites. I'm going to type it in the chat for a second. There you go, 80-20 rule. If you have heard of the 80-20 rule before, let me know. Give me a green check, thumbs up. Give me a red X if you're saying, what on earth is the 80-20 rule? Veronica, thank you. Love, thank you. I'm going to put it on the screen for you so you can take a look at this thing. And that's what it looks like. I got some yeses. Awesome. Okay. Now, I kind of break the demographics down here because I can see a good chunk of you a healthy proportion. You're familiar with this already, but are you thoughtfully using this? Are you deliberately keeping in mind the 80-20 rule with the work that you do and the way that you plan your work? I bet the number goes down. I'm not going to test that theory, but I know that we may meet something like this in a webinar, but it doesn't always mean it lands for us. Okay, so that's my learning goal today, to make sure we can see the point of it, frankly, because it's a principle, it's an idea, a principle from an Italian friend of ours called Pareto. He has been dead for 100 years, so rest in peace, Pareto. But so over 100 years ago, Pareto in Italy decided, he came up with an observation. He noticed that 20% of Italians owned 80% of the wealth, like that. And he was not saying that in a moral sense or ethical sense or any sense at all. He was just noticing, there's some wealthy people and there's some not so wealthy people. He's saying it's unequal, like that. And of course, he wishes to apply this principle, and we should apply this principle to everything, including all the things we do at work as well. We can recognize that some things we do, some things we give our energy to or our focus to, or our communications to, some things are going to give us a big return on our investment than others, and we should be trying to squeeze the most juice out of our working day, because it doesn't go on forever. If we're thinking we're going to solve a productivity issue just by working every minute of every day, we will exhaust ourselves. Have you tried that? Just try to work longer hours? Doesn't work in the long term. It hurts us. We burn out. Of course it does. And it reduces our quality of work as well. So I'd rather get more done in the same amount of time. I'd rather do better work and then have a life as well. I'm sure you would as well, right? Okay, so keep in mind as we look at 80-20, it is a principle. It is an observation. It's not about the numbers. It's not about 20 and 80. It could be 45, 55. Or it could be 1 and 99, right? About saying there are two things, or there are 5 things, they're not equal. I want to give you some examples on the screen, and I'm going to stop talking because I want you to take a good long read of these examples, and then I want to see what you think of them. Take a look. If you like the dust one, you know I made that up, right? That was my observation of my own home, as it turns out, right? Also, the last one, of course, is absolutely true. There's 5% of people around us who they're just the worst, aren't they? I know. Yeah, I know. Me too. It's a whole thing, right? Laurel, thank you. Never had so much focus on the dust example. I love it. So these are observations. They are examples. But notice that they can be about work. They can be about home. They can be about the roads as well. You have experienced the busy interstate. Tanya, well played. Let's take a look at this road example, because I mean I think these are hopefully they're kind of fun and kind of interesting and provocative. But of course, the real point of this is to just say what's the takeaway, right? So I'm going to take let's go with that roads one. 25% of the roads handle 70% of the traffic. Here's my question for you, for the chat, please, my friends. Who cares? Who cares that 25% of the roads handle 75% of the traffic? Who needs this information? Let me know in the chat. Oh, great example. Thank you. Right? So a multitude of people. We have the road users and we have the road fixers as well. What do the road users do with this information? Because I do the same thing, by the way. They complain. They do complain, but they also, they use their apps, don't they? They use their Waze, like, oh, turn on device location. That wasn't a very good example. So we navigate. We find alternate routes. It's what we do. We're efficient little animals, aren't we? When we're trying to find a place, exactly, take a different route. Thank you, Danielle. Ali, thank you. Well played indeed. But in addition, another customer for this information is, well, where I come from is TDOT, to Tennessee Department of Transportation, because right about this time of year, we're getting some freezing weather, some very wintry weather, low temperatures. This is when potholes are born. It's a beautiful time for potholes, little baby potholes, some very big potholes sometimes. And of course, if I'm working for TDOT, I'm thinking, oh, where are these going to appear? Well, where there's the most traffic. And of course, not just which roads do I need to fix, but when can I fix them? Because if the busiest roads are the ones with the most potholes, they're also the ones who are going to kick up the biggest fuss if I try to fix them at, let's say 7:30 on a Monday morning. That would not make me a very popular Department of Transportation, of course. So thinking in terms of anticipating key routes of where it's going to get busy, of course, or where there's going to be more accidents and wrecks on the road and issues around that, or safety issues, of course, but also maintenance as well. You gave me the stuff in the chat already, of course. I'll stop talking about roads, but it's just an example where we say this informs the way we strategically plan our day, our month, and our year in terms of what I need to do, where I need to do it, when it's going to come up, and who needs to give me some help. Or where do I get additional resources? Or do I need permission? Do I have the skills to get this done? I'm like an 80-20, gotta tell you. One more. The the restaurant one. I've got a bit of a background in hospitality, so I'm liking this one. Again, my question, well, let's say, of course, we just take this from the restaurant owner's perspective. What do they do with that information? What do you think? Because this seems like a big deal to me. For example, Tanya, thank you. Right. Thank you. You see, we've got almost at least 3.5 different examples of what they could do, right? Because, I mean, I don't know why, and that's the question they should be asking themselves is why? So is this about the menu? Is this about the food? Is this about the fashion, the eating habits of their customers? Is it just because they're in a certain location? Is it because their chef happens to be really bad at making most of the things on the menu, so the customers are learning by experience? Or is it the menu itself, because there's certain pictures and people are choosing like the blue plate special, whatever it is? Is it about the wait staff and the way they're recommending certain items as well? It's exactly, maybe it's just that, and maybe this restaurant needs to specialize, right? It's so a lot of possibilities, but that's how provocative the 80-20 rule is. That's how useful it is when bringing these things up, digging up these issues to say, what about inventory? What about menu? What about servers? What about the chef? What about location? And so on. So it doesn't answer all those questions, but it makes sure we don't forget about them as well. Because if that restaurant owner is just sitting there thinking, well, I should make more money, or we should take a look at the menu, they don't get anywhere. That's why restaurants sometimes go out of business, right? This rule can help them. This can help all of these things. So let's, again, focusing on the fact that it's not about the exact numbers, it's about things not being equal, right? And recognizing some things we can do more of, some things we can invest more of. I want to give you some work examples here. Let me fix that. There we go. Go ahead, take a look at those and see if these are one or two of these might be things that could help you out with your prioritizing. Take a look for me. Laura, like in that thumb, let's go with that idea. If you're going to commit, if you're going to sign up to being thoughtful about 80-20 in the work that you do, give me a green check, give me a thumbs up. If you're not sure about it, give me give me a pizza. No, give me a red X. If you've got questions about it, let me know in the chat. If you're wondering, what can this do for you, right? I mean, thank you. I look at that Kirsten, thank you. William, thank you. I look at that, the complaints one, analyze the complaints of 20% of your customers. Why is that why could that be a better option than analyzing the complaints of 100%? What's the benefit of just taking that 20%? Why would we do that? Well, thank you. It's true. you Pareto with that right there. Tanya, thank you. Well played. People generally complain about the same things. We don't have to look at everything. The same thing if I've got 100 bugs in my software, I'm looking at the top 20, and I'll solve more than 20% of the problems. Absolutely. Well played. Well played. Thank you, Tanya. Nice one. Same thing about customers. Same thing about business plans and workload. I mean, that is the top one, of course. That the horrors of the to-do list. My goodness me, I see people trying to use to-do lists and they've got 10, 15, 20 things on that list. And of course, they feel worse by the end of the day because it doesn't anticipate all the other things that can come in to your working day. I'm not focusing on getting, that's not my measure of success, getting 20 things done, but I'm sure as heck going to identify the top 3 things that are going to add value to my role or improve my relationships or make my boss happy with me, make my customers happy, whatever it is, right? Cool. I know when I used to work in speech writing, I might have an hour to write a little speaking note for a politician. They're getting ready to work with a reporter or another politician, or whether they're speaking in Parliament, whatever it is. And so I would split my hour. I'm trying to find the yellow cube here. There we go. Into 12-minute blocks. All right, and that was my time management. So I would say to my boss, I've got 12 minutes times 5. There's my blocks. And I would, and of course my boss would say, well, just because I've given you an hour doesn't mean you have to spend an hour. You talk about the law of diminishing returns in terms of my efforts. And so when I started thinking that way, not just that I will spend an hour because I blocked it out of my calendar, but how much of this is actually delivering for me? That's when I started to, without even knowing what Pareto principle was, I started using the 80-20 rule. So of course, the first 12 minutes of my speech writing hour, I was thinking about what to write. It's like that thoughtful time. The second block, I was drafting it. The third block, polishing it, doing some editing, and then I've still got 2 more blocks. And I'm thinking, well, I suppose I could add a picture. I could do a bit more finessing. I could show it to a friend, and I could do some more proofreading. I could make some changes. And I'm a writer. I could spend all day on that speech, and I've got to be careful with that. I've got to keep my old boss's voice in my head saying, hey, Mishpi, there are other things you could be doing right now, other things you could be planning for, like that. So be careful and thoughtful, my friends, my fellow leaders, with that sense of time. And just because we're working hard on a thing doesn't mean it's the best thing we could be doing. Of course, there's a temptation to do things we're good at. I know I like doing things I'm good at, but is it really the best return on my time investment? Thanks for looking at Pareto principle with me. Any other questions, comments about Pareto? Of course, let me know. We again, thank you to Italian observationalists of the previous century. Now for something else. This next one is called the urgent important matrix. I'm going to write that in the chat so we don't forget about it. If I can. All right, green check, thumbs up, my friends, if you're familiar with the urgent important matrix. I know I've got some previous experience here in the webinar with me. If you haven't, Alicia, thank you. You give me a red X, let me know. I knew I'd have a mix like that. But again, if you haven't heard of it, I'm going to explain it to you. You're going to be fine. If you have heard of it, are you using it? And are you using it individually? And are you using it organizationally? Because that's where you get the real juice on this one. Okay, thank you for those. I can see we're going to want to cover the fundamentals here because we've got some red X's. Fantastic, you're in the right place. Awesome. Let's take a look at it. Now, as soon as I explain this thing to you, you're going to say, oh, I didn't know it was called that. But yeah, we do that because you generally do like that. But it's about consistency. It's about thoughtfulness. And for me, this is about communication as well. So if you're being called to too many meetings, You got too many phone calls, too many emails. If you find there's too many demands on your time, if you're thinking to yourself, you know what, people don't realize how much I do around here. The matrix is a communication vehicle for you to let them know how much is going on, and the other way around as well. Because sometimes, you know, I might give someone a task or delegate something and wonder why it's taking so long. It's because I don't know what's on their plate. The matrix can help us have a much better understanding of collectively the pressures we're under, and helps us lend a helping hand, but also helps us schedule our time and prioritize so we're not having to field a bunch of requests all the time. So let's take a look at this in order. So we've got urgent and important. Clearly, those are tasks. Those are things that are on fire. They are mission critical, and you should do them now, or rather, someone should do them now. You've got some delegating potential with urgent and important, right? But these things are fires. You need to get the fire extinguisher out. If we don't get this done, we are failing in our job, right? Then you've got the stuff on the top right, important but not urgent. So we don't have to do it now. In fact, we probably shouldn't do it now. But what do we do with something? Again, it's still mission critical. All the stuff in the top half has to be done, just not right now. Help me out. If there's a project, if there's a report, if there's a piece of advertising, a research, if there's a meeting, there's just something, you know, it has to happen, but not right now. What can you do today to make sure that it does not catch on fire later on? Tanya, thank you. I like the sound of prep work. My goodness me, that the best meetings I've ever gone to, best meetings I've ever arranged have been ones where we've done the homework ahead of time. A meeting itself should not be that hard. I'm a little obsessed with meetings today, right? But the work we do to prepare for a conversation, a meeting, a phone call, email, whatever it is, it should make the rest of this run smoothly. I don't want to have to improvise my way through any of these things. So we do some prep work, and the prep work can look like questions to me. So if I've got a piece of work in my calendar or my task list, I'm thinking that's going to come up, that's going to be red hot in about a month's time. Well, I have to ask myself, and I think we should all be asking ourselves these pretty good questions. Do I have what I need right now to get this done? Do I have the resources? Do I have the skills? Do I have the support? Do I have the money? Do I have the permission? Do I have the infrastructure? And so on. And if the answer to any of those things is no, what do I need to do between now and then to make sure this happens as well? So of course, this could be flagging conversations or phone calls or little messages to people. We you've all done this. You've all said, heads up, gonna need this thing from you next week or in 2 weeks' time. And the more we do of that, the more little touches, touching base and getting in touch with people, not because we're trying to be a bother, not because we're trying to badger people, but because we don't want to surprise or shock them. Think of this as for the parents in the room, it's the kid at the dining room table the night before, and they're saying, oh yeah, we've got the science fair tomorrow. And it's like, tomorrow, it's the thing, right? So we don't want to be that kid. Not at all. The kid's fine, of course, but we don't want to be that person at work with these last minute surprise emergencies, because I don't like working with that person. No one does. I don't like being that person as well. So looking ahead, the top right is an opportunity for strategic and critical thinking. And the better we get at that, the better reputation we have. Because again, there are less things on fire. It doesn't stop things catching fire. It doesn't stop emergencies, because you can't, there are some unknown unknowns, as they say. Can't predict everything, right? But you can predict some stuff, because it's not your first day in the job. If it is, congratulations. But for most of us, not our first day at work. We know what we're doing. We are experts in our roles and our responsibilities. Let's use that. That is data for us. Let's use that to plan ahead. This is it's going to help us out. It's going to help our reputation as well. Okay, now I get to have some fun, because I get to think about things that are urgent but not important. What on earth is the one in the bottom left talking about? What could be urgent but doesn't really matter? What could that possibly be, my friends? What do you think? I've befuddled you. It's impossible, right? Urgent but not important. How could that be? I've got an example coming through. Hang on. Oh man, you see, I knew this webinar would be interrupted by an email, by a phone call. I'm going to wait for the third ring. Yes, I'll speak to you later. Okay, so I'm putting that phone call away. Phone calls are urgent, but often not important because the phone rings and we just let it ring. We got to pick it up. It's a distraction, right? Notifications on your email, inbox notifications. The fact that you had to come to the webinar at 11 Eastern time. You couldn't put it off half an hour, by the way. I wasn't going to wait half an hour for you. You had to do it right then. Urgent, but not important. So interruptions are timetable. And of course, most of the time, when I say not important, I mean not important to you. Seems to be important for them. Otherwise, why are they calling you? It's always a good question. It's like, if you don't care about this, why are you emailing me about it, right? Like that. Or why are we having a big meeting if no one seems very excited about solving the problem? And why do we even have to solve this problem as well? So this is coming from other people, because I don't email myself or phone myself. I'm not that quirky, as it turns out. So this is things that look like they're on fire: email, phone call, meeting, urgent request for help, but it's not in the top of your grid. It is not mission critical for you. So if someone comes to you with an urgent request for help and they're saying, help, it's on fire, but it's not gonna, if it's gonna divert you away from urgent and important, what do we do with that? Unless you just say yes to everything. Stop saying yes to everything. Shouldn't do that, right? What do you think? We need to reduce that yellow square, make it as small as possible. Lisa, thank you. Yes, I'm kind of busy right now. Could you come back another time? Like that. Could you take a ticket, take a number, like an old-fashioned butcher's shop or something, right? Absolutely right. There's scope for deflection here. There's scope for delay. Now, I'm not hiding on my desk most of the time when people come and ask for help, but I am going to get curious about their deadline. I'm going to question their urgency. Even a boss, sometimes I'm going to have to manage up a little bit and say, I know you're saying this has to be done by 3 o'clock. Just for my own sake, you could see I'm busy, I got a lot of stuff on. What happens if you miss that deadline? Because sometimes the deadline is real. Sometimes they just want to get it off their plate. Have you noticed that? Because they're feeling that sense of anxiety. They want to pass that on to you. So need a little bit of assertiveness here. Not being a jerk, not being mean, but I want a reality check on how urgent it really is. So if I've got you can see my 4 squares, I'm working at 100% capacity because I'm totally organized. And then someone comes along and says, Hamish, could you just help with just this one thing right here? It really, really important. Do me a favor like that. Well, sometimes, of course, I'm going to say yes, depending on the relationship. If it's the CEO, I'm probably going to say, absolutely, of course, right away, no problem at all. And I just drop everything else because then it becomes urgent and important. But if I'm looking at it and thinking, it's not mission critical for me, and I don't want to be in the habit of just saying yes to everything, I've got an option here to deflect, to delay, to compromise, to negotiate. I could say, well, you're asking for 2 of these, I could do you 1, or I could do it next Thursday, or Doug down the hall, I think he's better qualified for this as well. Anya, thank you. I love that, right? Your message is important to us, but right. So, and of course, that's about communications, whether it's about your email or do we still use voicemail? Things like automatic responses. If I'm using those, I'm going to make sure the rest of my team knows it. And I'm also going to make sure that my upper management is okay with it. So, of course, there's a cultural sense around that. But if we're using them consistently, let's get some macros in play for how we're responding if we're absolutely under pressure with something like that. What if it's our boss and we got to do everything the boss says, right? Well, the thing is, if I've got all of this stuff going on, I'm an expert in the work that I do, and then my boss comes along and says, there's something else I need from you, Hamish. Well, they're not actually the expert in what I do. I am. I own the work. So there's space for a conversation here that says, well, actually, I'm doing all of this right now. This is a reminder. But of course, if you want me to do that thing, what can I take off like this? Because I can't magically work at 110%. Unless I'm auditioning for American Idol or something. 110% is not a real thing, right? 100% is kind of a miracle. frankly, because we have distractions, because we're human beings as well. But again, I want to make sure I can have that just an honest exchange with whoever it is to say, to question the urgency, but also to question the deadline as well. Bottom line, we want to make that yellow box as small as possible. Again, but at the same time, get along with people and be a helpful human being, of course. What about the last one in the bottom right? Non-urgent, not important. Help me out. What could that possibly be? You would never indulge in something that's not urgent, not important, of course, in the workplace. But what are you thinking of there? See if I can find one for you. There's my not urgent, not important. Okay. Now, for me, I happen to be a bit of a cat fan, so I've got like cats on Instagram. I could spend some quality time on that, but I've got a timer on my phone that gives me 15 minutes a day for Instagram, and I would not look at it at work. So that Minesweeper, thank you. Well, that's aging us both, by the way. Yes. So social media, doom scrolling, gossiping, there are things that are kind of hurting us, things that are not self-care as well. Now, having a drink of water, having a stretch, eating lunch, showing courtesy to people around you, right? Showing you're a human being, that's good. You should build your relationships. You should look after yourself. Of course, you got to keep ourselves healthy, but things that aren't helping you, things that maybe you're doing to procrastinate the stuff that's on the top half of that matrix, be careful with that, because we know this is TikTok. This is no escape from Instagram, whatever it is. So trying to limit that as much as possible and be real with ourselves as well. So if I need to take a break, I want to take a healthy break, not scrolling the news website of doom and making myself feel worse, or looking at Facebook and again feeling worse as well if I'm comparing myself to those shiny lives around me. There's urgent important, and I mention it in terms of thinking this is something we can use for individual productivity and prioritizing, like, what have I got on my plate? But as a team exercise, ever on this, again, as a leader, as a manager of teams, last 20 years, I've been using this model as a way to open up that conversation with the people around me and the people I'm managing to say, what's urgent and important? Because we don't always ask the question collectively, and it can be a provocative exercise in a good way. It can stimulate discussion. It can stimulate disagreement as well. But it's a conversation that has to be had, because if we are working on different priorities that kind of conflict with each other or go in different directions, you could have a team that's working fantastically hard in the wrong direction, right? And we've got to pick that up. We've got to nip it in the bud. Of course we do. So as a communications exercise with your people, but also as an ownership exercise for yourself, it's worth running this. And you can see how simple this is. It's just a grid, put on a scrap of paper, stick it on the wall. A great whiteboard activity as well for you and your team. A great way to recognize, are we focused on the most important things? And amongst us, who's working at full capacity, who could afford to help out, who's got something coming up next month? Just a way to keep an eye on the calendar as well. Any questions, comments, concerns about the urgent, important matrix? Let me know. Thank you for looking at that one. I appreciate that. All right, next example. Let's take a look. We've got about 10 more minutes to run with. We're going to look at a couple of other prioritization techniques here. First one is called the glass jar. Let me show you what the glass jar looks like. And again, I'm asking you, have you met this one before? Looks like that. Rocks, pebbles, sand, and water. Give me a green check or a thumbs up if this rings a bell. Let me know. Misha, thank you. Daniel, thank you. Cliff, thank you. Kristen, thank you. William, thank you. Did you? Thank you. Now, imagine the glass jar. And imagine that this glass jar represents our working life. What keeps us busy, how we divide our time and our tasks and our responsibilities throughout the day. So let's take a look at this sand business. Phone calls, emails, social media notifications, disrupting elements, interruptions, it's getting in your way, right? Pebbles. Let's see. Well, if we look at sand and water as well. Just that stuff that we can fill up our jar with interruptions. I could fill up my jar with water, just constant talking to people and meetings and phone calls. It's not getting me anywhere like that. So if I look at my pebbles, that's jobs. That's problems to solve, right? So I've got that's my to-do list. That's my pebbles, right? And we can easily focus on that and then kind of lose sight of what we're really being paid to do, like that. So, what is my job? What is my job as a manager? I know what is my rock as a manager, as a leader. Have a think about that. What is the role? Like that. If we're successfully delegating, they're doing the work. So what is our job? What is our rock? And my rock as a manager is to get out of my team's way. My job is to help them build their capacity. So my job is almost to do myself out of a job, frankly, although I've noticed even as I delegate things, I continue to get more things. Just a magical trick there with delegation. You never run out of things to do, as it turns out. But again, the rock, the ultimate purpose, the rock of the webinar for me, of course, is you getting takeaways. Is this being a good result for you? This can change the way you prioritize, the impact this has on your working life. That's my rock, and that's how I designed the webinar, right? There's still pebbles. Got to make sure there's a slide deck, there's a Zoom room, things like that. And of course, I've got people around me here at New Horizons who are helping me with the delivery of this webinar and the IT and the infrastructure and all those things. But I've got to make sure that the rock is the most important thing for me. That is my priority. And I've also got to make sure, what about the sand? What about the water? What about possible interruptions and notifications on my phone and disruptions? What about other things on my calendar? I've got to make sure I'm managing that so it doesn't form the main part of my working day. And that's tough because maybe you're like me, you get a few emails, you get a few phone calls. Turns out the better you get the work that you do, the more things they want you to do. Doesn't seem fair at all, does it? Right? So I want to put something in the chat. I know you're going to get an email about this as well. I want to give you the little worksheet from New Horizons to you about how you can go through this in a deliberate fashion and think, what the work that you do, what are the rocks, the pebbles, the sand, and the water. And I want you to think about, of course, I'm not giving you homework, I promise. I want to invite you to go and take a crack at this after the webinar, but recognize if this is something that's going to help you out, you should do it. And of course, if you find you're thinking, I don't really need help with that, I know what my rocks are, I guarantee there is at least one person you work with who does need or who could benefit from this activity. So if you don't need it, pass it on. Friendly bit of advice for someone you work with, where I say, I'm overwhelmed. I can't keep eyes on my focus. I keep getting distracted. This would be a great activity for them. Okay. All right. Let me keep my promise there and put the handout in the chat. You can click to download that any old time, but you're also going to get an email about it as well, by the way, just so you know. There we go. There's that PDF in the chat. Thanks for looking at rocks, pebbles, sand, and water with me. I appreciate you. Okay. All right. So I've got probably two more big questions for you this morning. So I'm going to clear the Zoom reactions because I want to use those. Those Zoom reactions for your answers. Okay, so it's like, obviously a green check for yes, or a thumbs up for yes, or red X for no, just like we've been doing. I'm going to put the question in the chat and I'll ask you to think about it and give me an honest answer because I won't tell anyone. Oh, that's a very annoying way of putting that in the chat. It says, ever feel overwhelmed by the scale of a task? If you ever feel that sense of overwhelmed by the work that you're doing, give me a green check, give me a thumbs up, because I've got a suggestion for you. Well, thank you. You should thank me too, by the way. I'm like, oh, my goodness me. There's been points in my career where I've gone home and told my wife, and I've told the cats, it's like, I don't know if I can take that on. This might be more than I can handle, right? That moment of thinking, oh, can I do this in a promotion, in a different job, in a career change, or just a new project or a new boss or whatever it is. We haven't done this thing before. Can we do it like that? I'm seeing some thumbs in the chat there. Thank you, my friends. So here's my advice. And this is the advice I was given, of course, that one of the first times in my professional career where again, I was thinking, I went to my boss, I said, I don't know if I can do this. They told me about chunk, block, and tackle. Let's take a look at this. Oh, that one. There we go. Chunk, block, and tackle is saying to ourselves, if you look at a project or a task and just look at the sheer scale of it, and it's something that has to be done over 3 months, or it's a 300-page report, whatever it is, of course, we're going to feel overwhelmed. Our human brains are like, this is too much. I think I would rather have a cookie, right? I'd rather go play a video game or something. This is too much. I'm going to make a phone call. I'm going to empty the dishwasher. I'm going to procrastinate, right? Because I don't know where to start like that. That's natural. That's okay. That's how our brain operates sometimes. So let's make it easier for our brain to help us by breaking up our project into chunks. Okay. Now it says 15 minutes, doesn't have to be 15 minutes, but that's just an example. So think about the chunks. Think about the pieces. Again, if I'm thinking about a project for the business that I do, I'm thinking, okay, there's the marketing, there's the scheduling, there's the creating the materials, there's the advertising, and so on. So what are the chunks? And for me personally, of course, I think of this in terms of urgency, but also in terms of, well, something I could just knock out in 15 minutes as well. So can I get this done? And then block out the times, put these into your calendar, make a commitment, get a notification on your phone to say, it's now time to crack on with this piece of work. And also allowing the people around you to know you're not available for that phone call because you're working on this. And that's just obviously a communications exercise as well. So thinking, what are the pieces of work? What are the chunks? What's the timing? And then getting it done like that. The tackle, of course, is the focus. And you're thinking, sometimes I procrastinate, sometimes I get distracted. If you program this out, give yourself some time, you can spend 15 minutes on it. I guarantee it. We can all do something for 15 minutes and no interruptions, no breaks. We get it done. We move on to the next thing. This builds momentum. This builds a great habit. This is a fine way to start your day, my friends, because we start the day getting something done. We're eating a frog, as they say in the trade, right? We're doing the thing that we were overwhelmed and nervous about. So recommending chunk, block, and tackle, like so. Now, I mentioned I had a last main question for you. Let me put that one in the chat, but I'm going to read it out as well, because I'm really wondering about this one, because I know I've got some people who have maybe struggled and danced with perfection over the years. So here's my question for you. Again, in the chat. Hopefully it'll be kind of readable this time. Keeps doing the same thing. All right. Ever put up doing something until you know it's going to be perfect? Ever shy about starting something because you want it to be mistake-free? You want to be pristine? Laurel, thank you. Let me know. I've worked with a lot of clients over the years who know they've got something that's red hot important, but they shy away from beginning it because they don't want to get it wrong. Biggest issue I've had with coaching clients over the years, they tell me, hey, Misha, I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to be penalized. I don't want to look foolish. I don't want to let my team down like that. So if you don't take a step forward, you can't get lost, right? But of course, it means we're avoiding the most important thing. We're denying the principle of 80-20. We're making Pareto roll in his grave, frankly. So we have to crack on with the most important things. If we're putting it off because we're afraid of making a mistake, here's the advice I will give you today. And it's going to look kind of funny when you first see it. It looks like a grammatical mistake. It is not. Ready, fire, aim. Okay, with our couple of minutes remaining, let's take a moment. Let's dive in to this one. Ready, fire, aim is a recognition that perfection is impossible, but also it's a recognition that if you've got something you're doing for the first time and you want to be as good as possible, you're striving for progress, the only way to make that journey is to try stuff out. The business and the work we do is not a theoretical exercise. You can't just plan, and then deliver something perfect. You've got to make some mistakes. You've got to do the learning, and the learning can be painful because we're striving for progress. And when you're striving, when you're learning something new, like we're learning to prioritize better, learning to get more done, that can feel a little off balance because it's something new. I can get a little annoyed by that sometimes. I want to be the expert in everything. Of course I do. I'm a teacher and a trainer, right? But so I know if I'm reaching for something new, off balance, I need some support. And the support I have is the voice in my head saying, hey, Mish, you know what? The only way to learn, the same advice I would give you, the only way to learn something new, the only way to get something better is, of course, to try it, recognize mistakes, be gentle with ourselves, and focus on not making those mistakes again. Like that. So notice this is not just fire. This is not about being reckless. It's not about jumping off the cliff. It's not about jumping into the pot of fire, right? There is some planning, but we're not planning forever because 80-20 rule, urgent important matrix. How much can we get use out of that time? So we do some planning, do some research, ask some good questions of ourselves and other people, and then we try it out. And you know what? If it's perfect the first time, fantastic. I'm delighted. But if it's not, we shift our aim. We make an adjustment. We ask the good questions. And then, of course, we make a new plan. Plans are not supposed to be written in stone. Plans are something to get us going. Plans are a way to communicate with other people about what we need from them, what they might need for us. We make a new plan based on that new information, and we get better that way, like so. If you're willing to take on Ready, Fire, Aim, if that's going to help you out in the work that you do, let me know with a green check or a thumbs up. If you have any questions about Ready, Fire, Aim, let me know that too. And if you're, again, think about the people you work with. If there's someone you know, it could be your boss. It could be someone you work, could be an assistant, could be a team member, could be a customer. If you know someone who finds it very difficult to make a start on a task because they are afraid of making a mistake, please let them know about Ready, Fire, Aim, because that is going to be worth their while. They won't forget about the person who told them about this, like this. Gilliff, thank you. Nice one. Thank you all. I'm going to give you my official thank you right now because I am so grateful for you taking the time to share the internet space with me today, but of course also for your contributions and for your humor in the chat, but also your thumbs up and all the contributions. Thank you for all that stuff. Thank you for choosing us. Thanks for choosing New Horizons. Have a wonderful day. Any last questions, stick around, ask me, but thank you so much for spending the time with me today. Good luck with your prioritizing. Good luck with your getting things done. Thanks, everybody.